Okay, so today my custom shocks arrived from Viking Performance out from Minnesota. So I've already opened it, but I haven't actually looked at anything. So I've been working, so I didn't have time to actually dig into it and see what's what, but they're here, Viking shocks. All right, I'm back, and today we're going to be assembling my new Viking Berserker shocks. Double adjustment. I've mentioned these in some other videos, but they finally arrived, obviously, and we're going to go over it and get them assembled, all put together. So a little bit of what I have here. Obviously the shocks. I've got the bearings. I have the jam nuts. Of course, we have our T-bar setups for top and bottom, and all of the associated snap rings that go with it. And then, of course, the springs. These are 750. You might notice that I only have 2 washers here. And the reason that is sometimes in certain, shock kits, you're gonna see the washer, a thrust bearing, and another washer. So it would go washer, thrust bearing, and then washer. The reason that's not needed in this application is because going back to this spring, you can see how short it is, right? So if you can imagine this being stuffed up in the shock tower underneath there, I'm not gonna have, and that's why all this was set up the way it was, I'm not gonna have barely any, if any, preload on this spring. So if you could imagine if this spring was this tall, right? If it was this tall, then when you stuff it up under there and you drop the car down, the weight of the car is going to compress that spring and put all that preload on it, right? Well, this isn't gonna have that. This is gonna stuff up in there. If anything, it might even be a little bit loose up there. So to be determined. So in this scenario, I only need the one. And again, the whole point of having that extra thrust bearing and washer is when you have all that preload down on the spring and you're actually making your adjustments, that it's easier to do. I'm not going to have that problem with this scenario. So first what we're going to do is we're going to start with some snap rings. Okay, double check it. Oh, there we go. Got it snapped in. Okay, so that's number 1. I'm gonna do one side, then put in the bearing, and then do the other side. Oops. Okay, one's a little stuck out there. There we go. Okay, make sure they're in there good. Drop the bearing in. Snap ring number 2 or 3, I guess. Get in there. Boom shakalaka. Looks like it's seated in there well. Okay, flip side. Last snap ring for this shock. Oops. Come on now. Stuff it in there. There we go. All right, here's number 2. And by the way, if anybody's noticed these brass collars here, these are bonus parts, for me anyway. If you were not using these T-bars and you were using just a standard bolt, and you needed to fill in the gap between the bolt and the bearing, then you would use that in that application. But I'm using the T-bar. Okay. Snap ring number 1. Okay. Come on. Side that I go on. Okay, so it doesn't matter. Okay. Next, snap ring. Boom. Make sure it's in there nice and good. It is. Okay, got the first bearing in there. Snap ring. Okay, that's in there nice and tight. Okay, next. Boom. Last snap ring for this part of it. We do have these snap rings, but that's for the T-bars. Oops, get back in there. There we go. Stuff it in there. Okay, snap ring number 2. Okay. So there you have it. Bearings and snap rings in, both shocks. So next up will be the T-bars. Now, the top one, I'm actually not going to be installing, and here's why. I've already kind of experimented with how this fits to this top shock mount here. And sure, I could do it like this, but when you have it in the shock, which I've kind of tested it, and how it fits up in the shock tower, I'm gonna have very limited ability to kind of angle it and get it through. So once I get this fed up through in the car, I'll put it on up here and then just take care of it at that point. So, all right, so as you can see, I already slid the T-bar through the bottom bearing here. I was gonna get that on the video, but whatever. You obviously get the idea. So slid that in here. I'm gonna hold this up a little closer. You can probably see on each side there's a little groove, and that's gonna be for the snap ring. Here, maybe see it better with this here. So you can see the 2 grooves, boom and boom. That's for the snap rings. So this one is a different size snap ring. And I need a different snap ring wrench for this one. There we go. So number 1, this one has to be spread. Okay, 1, And this one has to be spread out, whereas the other snap ring had to be compressed. Get this out. Come on now. There we go. Okay, make sure it's in there on both sides. Perfect. All right, so that's that. And now I'm just gonna rinse and repeat on this one over here. And like I say, I'm going to install the upper T-bars once I actually get it up into the car. Now we'll move on to the jam nuts. Okay, so first, we're gonna get this sucker on. And this one. Okay. So for me, I'm not going to be compressing the spring up at all. As I mentioned in my other videos, maybe, I don't know if I did, but I'm going to be using the full lowering capabilities of the shock, so I'm going to be maxing it out. So next I'm going to put the anti-seize on the threads. So for me in this section, it's really going to be just kind of like down here. That's really where it's all going to happen for me. So I'll move this up. Let me get a towel just in case. Yummy stuff. Any excess I will wipe off later, but this will do the trick. Okay. See, I already got this crap on me. Spin this jam nut all the way down. And do for the second one. Okay, good enough. Then a washer. There you go. Okay. Then the spring will go in like so, and there you have it. One assembled Viking shock. So next we'll go ahead and get this stuffed in the car, get it all put together, and fingers crossed, hope everything works.